All right, now I'm going to talk about somebody who I thought was a friend of mine, but now I'm not so sure. And his name is Tyler Kerr, and he goes by Adam Rush on the internet. That's his poet name. Now, I went to school with Tyler. I met him when I was 15 years old, and he was standing in the hall with this girl that we both knew, and he was glaring at me like he wanted to start a fight. And we had an argument in the hallway, and I kind of stood up to him because he was a few years older than me. I think he was 2 years older than me. It was kind of like, "What are you looking at?" he asked me. I'm like, "Nothing much." And he said something wise. I said something wise back, and I walked away. That was the first time I met him. He tried to intimidate me. Then I went over to his condo complex to play a game of football with some kids in that condo complex. And he came out and he started playing with us, and we got to be friends. And he was, I think, 2 years older than me. And he had his license, or he got his license at some point. And so the two of us would go out, and we would go to different parties. He knew some of the older kids in the area, and he seemed all right. He was the first kid that I knew who knew how to get weed. He had a friend from the nearby city called Danbury. We lived in Brookfield, Connecticut, and we went to go see his friends in Danbury where we scored weed. We brought it back to his condo with a bunch of other kids, and his mom was out, and we just hung there watching Pink Floyd The Wall and smoking weed. So I thought Tyler was a pretty cool guy. He had one girlfriend in high school. When he was a junior, he started dating a freshman. And this girl was very masculine. She had her hair cut short, and they went out for 4 or 5 months, and they broke up with her. I don't remember him having a girlfriend besides her. So when I got to be a junior, and he was a senior, I started hanging out with him less. I started hanging out with a different crew of kids. And I did not see him very much his senior year. And then he called me the next year. And he had been going to school. He had been going to college in New Jersey, I think. I don't remember the name of his school. And I remember hanging out with him, and he said he got into poetry. And he read some of his poems to me, including Messiah of Discontent, that I thought was very good. I thought it was excellent. I never really got into poetry before that, never really heard poetry before that, except in the English class. And I thought his poem was pretty good. So with Tyler, him and I wouldn't hang out on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis. Tyler would call me up out of the blue, and we would go out and hang out, and then I wouldn't see him or hear from him for another 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And that is how it always was. When I was 21 or 22, I met a girl at a store that I worked at Filene's, and I moved in with her into a condo. We eventually got a condo that was right next to his condo complex, and I began to see him a little bit more. He would come over, he would walk over, knock on the door, and he would hang out with us a little bit more. And there was always me, Kim, and Tyler hanging out. And I got to see him a little bit more often. And I broke up with Kim, and I started going out with my ex-wife, Rachel. And so I sold the condo. My mother ended up buying it. She moved into it. And I had plans to move up to New Hampshire to live with Rachel. But there was like 4 or 5 months that I did not have a place to stay. So I crashed on Tyler's couch in Danbury, Connecticut. He lived with 2 other guys in a house they rented. It was like a 2-family house. They rented one side, and I crashed on the sofa for 4 or 5 months. And Tyler did not seem happy about it. I did not try to bother him too much, and I always went up to New Hampshire on the weekends to see Rachel. So I was there usually like Monday through Thursday. And then the weekends, Friday through Sunday, I would be in New Hampshire. And he was not too happy about that, and for the most part, I left him alone. We both had jobs, and sometimes would hang out at night for a little bit. Now, Tyler never said he was a homosexual, but honestly, he would act kind of feminine at times. And one time was when he said, "Want to go out for drinks one night?" I said, "Yeah, let's go get a beer." And we went to a Mexican restaurant that had a bar there. There was a bunch of people hanging out in the bar. I got myself like a Mexican beer. And Tyler ordered a pink daiquiri. And it came with a little straw and an umbrella. And he started leaning over it and sipping it as we sat at a table near to the bar. And some of the guys in the bar were kind of looking at us and kind of laughing. And I said, Tyler, why don't you take the straw and the umbrella out of the drink and drink it like a regular drink? And he said, what? Is this not manly enough for you? In a very feminine voice. I said something like, okay, just finish your drink. I want to get out of here. So we got into the car, and it was like he wanted to start an argument with me. And I kind of said, Tyler, it's kind of like you're acting gay. And I don't care if you're gay. You could be gay. I'll still be your friend. But don't act like we're going out on a date here. I don't like that. Don't act like I'm gay with you. And I said, are you gay, Tyler? And he started kind of laughing and looking down. He didn't want to answer the question. And I said, I don't really care if you're gay. But when we go out, don't act like we're going out on a date together. I didn't appreciate how you're acting in that bar. I never saw you act like that before. Tyler played sports in high school. He acted like a jock in high school. He never acted feminine. So this was kind of new. So I guess that Tyler was either bisexual or struggling with homosexuality. But obviously I did not care about this. I knew the kid since I was 15. And just because he's gay does not mean that I don't want to be friends with him. So I was always real cool about it. And I never really brought it up. So Rachel and I eventually ended up moving back to Connecticut. We got a condo in Waterbury. And I would go visit Tyler from time to time. Once again, I would not hear from him very often. And he would call me up every 3 or 4 months and say, why don't you come over and chill? So I would drive from Waterbury to Brookfield and hang out with him. I would usually bring beers in, and Tyler would smoke weed. And we'll talk about the screenplay idea we had, an idea for a film. And the film was called Primitive America. And it was about marijuana laws. It was about the decriminalization of marijuana. And for the most part, I had the story idea, but not too much was accomplished at his house. And this went on for a few years. And in part, it didn't help to go over there and just want to shoot the shit and get drunk. Not too much was accomplished in the screenplay. And also, Tyler didn't seem too motivated in getting it done either. What he did have was a screenwriter's program that had a format you could follow to write a professional screenplay. There's a certain format you have to put it in. You just can't write it like you're writing a regular book. There's a certain format. He had a program to do that. So he had that. But years went on and we never really were able to gain any ground on the screenplay. It was just kind of like we'd get confused. So Tyler, I noticed, was kind of like a drain to hang out with at this time. And how he acted was that he acted withdrawn. He acted depressed. And so we would work a little bit on the screenplay. And then I would have like 3, 4 drinks, 5 drinks, start catching a buzz. And then we'd just start talking about something different. And for the most part, Tyler would just kind of sit there, staring at his computer, not saying much. And something that was odd was this. Every time I hung out with him, at this point in time, I would be sick for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And I would hang out with him maybe 3, 4 times a year. For I would say maybe 4 or 5 years. And I would hang out with Tyler, my old buddy from high school. And every time I hung out with him, I would be sick for 2 or 3 days afterwards. It was like I felt drained some days, like I had no energy. And other times I felt like I had the flu. I was sick, physically sick, for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And now I would not dismiss the fact that the kid put something in my drink. He had the downstairs room, and I would be drinking beer or water, and often I would go upstairs to use the bathroom, and I'll leave the drink there unattended. So it was real easy for the kid to drop something in my drink. But every single time, over a period of like 5 years, every time I went to his house, I would be sick for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And honestly, at that time, I've always been a spiritual person, and I thought maybe it's because Tyler needed some energy. I want to tell you now, if you are friends with somebody and every time you hang out with them, you feel drained, you feel bad the next day, do not hang out with them. At the best, at the very best, they are an emotional vampire. They are an energy vampire. Something is wrong with them. Or more accurately, they may be drugging your food or drink to make you feel like that. So in 2013, I had just published my first book called Leech Mob. And Tyler called me up on the phone. It was over the summer. I drove to his house. And he acted like he was real pissed off that I didn't tell him about Leech Mob. He had found out on the internet. It had been a while since I had talked to him. A lot happened in 2012, but to make a long story short, I didn't see the kid for maybe about 6 months to a year, and he acted pissed off and didn't tell him about Leech Mob. But I had a copy for him of Leech Mob, and I gave him that copy. And I think I gave him an autographed copy. I wrote to Tyler, from your friend John. So it just came out a few weeks ago. I didn't get a chance to tell you. So at that point I said, I've gotten better at video production. Why don't we go out and start filming you, reading some of your poems, and do some videos. We could kind of develop your website here. His YouTube channel had 3 or 4 videos on it, but there's no music on it. So why don't we go out and start doing that again, and we could develop this YouTube channel. So he would read the poems on camera. I would videotape them. I would go home, edit that video, and often put music to it. Some of the music I used was from his first CD called Adam Rush that was done with a guy named Benoit. He's a musician from like Long Beach, New York. I kind of remixed it and changed the music a little bit. And later on I started using my GarageBand music program to create original music for his spoken word tracks. So as you know, I have 4 different channels on YouTube where I expose government corruption, secret societies, and secrets of the occult and religion. And I always showed Tyler where those websites were. But the last website called Eden vs. John had the best evidence and proof on it. And he did not want to talk about it at all. He never mentioned them. If I said I have a new video up there, you should check it out, he would just get real quiet and not mention it at all. And the way I looked at it then was maybe some of the material made him uncomfortable. Maybe it made him nervous. But I'm telling you now, if you know somebody and you show them where some good information is, and they make it a point never to bring it up, never to comment on it, never to say a thing about it, something's wrong with that. There were even a few videos that he helped me with. One was called Commander X, where he interviewed me. He said, "This is Commander X." It was kind of a joke. And he's going to discuss some of his alien encounters. Besides that, if I talked to him about aliens or anything, he would just sit there dead quiet, would not say a thing. Some people would be like, yeah, I have a story about seeing aliens or seeing a UFO, or ask him questions. Nothing. He just sat there and didn't say a thing about it. And at that time I said, you know what? He's a little bit uncomfortable about that. Because Tyler's a little bit of an egotistical person, and maybe he likes to go look at the videos that I do, but doesn't want to let on like he's looking at the videos. That's what I thought in my mind. He hears me enough on the internet. So he doesn't want to sit there and have me talk about that when we're there together. He would rather talk about poetry, or rather talk about the screenplay,